tonight's speaker. I had the pleasure of meeting this individual when I was invited to speak on a panel here. And from the moment you meet this guy, you feel like you've known him forever, right? He's got such a positive, warm energy, and it's infectious, right? You can't help but be in a good mood when you're around him. It's super inspiring what he's doing, what he's helped create here, and kind of the culture that he's fostering. So with that being said, welcome to the stage, Paul.
Thanks, brother. Oh, thanks, Chip. It's the nicest thing anybody's said about me today, for sure, if not all week. My name's Paul. I'm an addict. So just to give you a little backstory, like when we started Next Generation Recovery, the meeting, we did not do testimonies. It was not something we really kind of planned to do. I don't think it was like we intentionally, avoided it. But for me, I was like, what do we need that for? But we had a meeting, and this is what we decided to do. And selflessly, they asked me to share my testimony. and it's a really big honor to be asked to do this. I want to be very genuine. I'm tired of telling my story. I feel like I've told it a million times over the last month. But this is home for me. So no holds bar. I don't have to say sober instead of clean or clean instead of sober. I can tell you all the raw details. And there's a couple of things that I'm going to share tonight that I've never shared before because of of how this meeting is ran. Yeah. Thanks, Joel. So, hey, Charlotte. One other thing about testimonies that you don't normally see either is you don't get to see slides with pictures on them. This was kind of a different thing that I get to do. And so I dug deep. I wanted to be as transparent as I possibly could about my story. There's some pictures in here that I've never shown anyone, and I'm sure a lot of people have never seen. So bear with me. But I just want to give a brief, again, gratitude for the opportunity to speak. Nicole, Andrew, Joel, the group asked me to be the first testimony, and I realize how important that is for what we're doing here. And so I hope that I set a standard that only everybody else envies. I feel bad for some of the people that follow me at this. No, I'm joking. I want to share my life story from broken to purpose, and how God brought me from the pit to a place of peace. And that's genuinely it. I want to begin by saying that I was like many of you. I grew up a good guy, a good kid. And somewhere along the way, I lost my path. I was broken. And I'm blessed to be able to have found my way back and live a life that I don't deserve, that I couldn't imagine would actually turn out the way it has. So I want to paint a picture of where I'm from. If you know me, I'm from North Alabama, a town called Athens. Here we go. I went and pulled some pictures up. That yellow picture of the state of Alabama, that little red dot at the top. So I was raised right in the Tennessee River Basin. And when I talk about hillbillies, it's hillbillies. It's dirt roads, it's cow fields, it's cotton farms. And I talk more of like a city slicker now than I did when I lived there. I'll go home and my grandmother, she would always say, "Why you talk like a city boy?" It's sweet tea, and I'll be there in about an hour. That's how I was brought up. But I love the fact I'm a country kid. I love dirt roads, hunting and fishing. There was nothing to do there. I remember I was like 18 before we got a Walmart. I was like, we'd drive 45 minutes to go to a Walmart. Everything was small town, family-owned businesses. I remember we used to buy bologna from the general store down the road. I know I'm painting a picture of Mayberry, but that was my life. At an early age, my dad was a really, really abusive alcoholic. I have one younger brother named Alex, and I remember when we were very young, just it seemed like a nightly occurrence that him and my mom were in an altercation, and we would hide under our beds in our room. And I want to say about 5, 6 years old, my mom finally had had enough. She packed up the car and she left. And very soon after that, my dad realized he couldn't take care of 2 boys, so my grandmother and grandfather adopted me and my brother Alex. I always say in my story how it went from like this turbulent childhood to sudden peace, because my grandparents, my grandfather was an evangelist and a carpenter. My grandmother was a stay-at-home grandmother. You know, she cooked all 3 meals during the day. She packed our lunch. She made sure that when we got home that there was someone there to love us. She wasn't real stern, but she was. She taught us discipline through love. And till the time I was 13 years old, it was it's a part of time that I wish I could go back and visit. I remember on the weekends we didn't really do anything crazy. My granddad would always take us fishing on Saturday and church on Sunday. So it was peaceful. But at 13 years old, December 14th, at 7 o'clock, I'll never forget this, my grandfather died of cancer. And it was this huge buildup. I mean, for a couple years, he fought cancer. And it seemed like every time he would get really bad, he would fight and fight and fight, and then, you know, he would go into remission. But this particular time, you know, he was in a hospice bed, and as a 13-year-old boy, I just thought he was going to get better again. You know, I thought he was just going to fight through it. But he passed away, and I just remember from that moment to currently, the family element just dissipated. You know, the aunts and the uncles and the cousins didn't come over to the house after church on Sunday anymore. You know, it wasn't going fishing on Saturday. I wasn't watching my grandfather preach on Sunday. You know, a lot of the key things in my life just disappeared. Needless to say, losing him shattered my foundation. I didn't realize till much later how traumatic that was for me at 13 years old. Now I do. I didn't have a father figure in the house anymore. There was no one to teach me how to shave my face. I just kind of took on that leadership role. I want to fast forward a little bit to explain one of the main issues in my recovery. So one thing I always wanted to do was I wanted to be like my grandfather. I always had the wrong motives for why I did some of the things I did, but he was an evangelist. So he would preach 3 services a week, and that's what I wanted to be. So at 15 years old, I gave my first sermon. It was on Hebrews 11, a chapter of faith. I'll never forget it. And I began preaching regularly until I was about 32 years old. So if you ever wonder where the public speaking aspect of my personality comes from, it was ingrained at me at a very early age. However, it was something in my life that was so misguided. I didn't really have this elder that would take me around and teach me these things. I took on this responsibility at such an early age. I didn't realize the temptations that were going to come at me at 15 years old. It was hard to be the good kid. You know, it was hard to be the good kid when you're 6'3", you play every sport, you know, you have all the friends, and all the friends want to go do the things that are fun at that age, you know, whether it was smoking weed or drinking beer by the river or getting your truck stuck, you know. The good preacher kid couldn't do that. So I started to adopt these 2 different personalities. There was Preacher Paul on Sunday, and then there was, you know, this hellion throughout the week. And I lied and hid that from everybody, so I thought. There was an inner battle that was going through me and going on in my life, knowing the truth but running from it. You know, I would have this overwhelming guilt, like Christian guilt, if you would, that the way I was living wasn't right. And I didn't really know how to counteract it, because as I grew and the girls came into my life and all of these things, I didn't know how to control it. So I want to fast forward a little bit further. In 2010, I met a girl. I always say it's my first hostage. We ended up getting married in 2013, and somewhere in between there, I was involved in a serious car accident involving an 18-wheeler, which broke my vertebrae in my back and my collarbone, a bunch of my ribs, and this is the first time I was introduced to pain pills. They were prescribed to me. Now, I'd used drugs before this. They were, if you can say mild drugs, like I'd smoke some weed, I would drink here and there. But this was the first time that I didn't have that guilt, right? I didn't have this overwhelming conscience like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this because a physician told me I could take these. A doctor said, hey, this is okay. You're going to need this for the rest of your life. You're crippled. You're this, you're that. Told me all of these things. And I was convinced because they were a doctor that it was okay. So in 2013, I got married at Disney World. You can see down there with Mickey and Minnie. It was the biggest waste of money ever. It was a great time. I would tell you I was a good husband, but that would be a lie. I constantly lied. I would be at the bars. I would be getting high. I'd be meeting the guy in the bathroom for, as we call, nose beers, but that was what I would be doing. Well, I had this wife at home, that had no idea, or at least I thought. And this went on for a very long time. I had Whiskey Wednesdays where I would be working late, but I would be at the bar. And I still had this problem of just being myself. You see, the problem with having these two types of lives is you become a fraud. You're fraudulent. You're not okay with, I wasn't okay with just being a hillbilly from Alabama. I always had to be something bigger than that or something better than that. This went on for 8 years, and I wore the mask well, but on the inside I was dying, and that's the truth. I'm fixing to go to this next slide, and I don't think Shelby's seen these pictures. She may have. I'm sure her mom Googled me for hours. But I just want you to take a close look at the guy that's sitting up there on the camera there. The picture in the bottom left-hand corner is about 6 months before these next pictures I'm going to show you. Dude, it's wild, right? Yeah, Andrew probably identifies with that one. So, yeah, this is as real as I can be. I actually looked these up today, and this was a really emotional moment for me because I had forgotten how bad it had gotten. In these pictures, I'm dying. In these pictures, I'm dying. I mean, everyone in this room has known me as a 6'4", 200-something pound dude. And in two of those pictures I know of, I weighed like 186. Like I was just a skeleton, shredded. But this was my rock bottom. In 2021, I was deep into heroin, meth, and cocaine. I was shooting up. I had given away the wife. I'd given away the truck. I'd given away the house. I'd given away the dogs. Hank Williams Jr. song right there. You can take it and write it. But that was where I was. I was living in my truck, and I had stumbled upon this homeless camp in Kissimmee behind a Wawa. I met some wonderful characters out there. But my reality was I just didn't care anymore. I didn't want to live. I didn't care if I died. And the best way to describe it is I had nothing to lose, right? There's two categories of people in life, people that have something to lose and people that have nothing to lose. And I had lost it all. And so I spent my money different. I acted different. I treated people differently. That whatever sliver of a preacher kid there was gone. I didn't care. In this time frame, I decided to walk into a Circle K gas station and rob the place. To be clear, I was not a criminal before this. I'd never gotten caught, I guess. I'd gotten tickets and things of that nature, but I didn't have like this criminal makeup like many of us didn't before our addiction. However, it's important to understand that I walk into this gas station and I tell the lady to give me all the money, and I'm such a bad criminal that I showed up to the same gas station a week later and the cops were waiting on me. Just to be chronologically correct, I got out on bond, and this is when I moved to Kissimmee. And then that from December 12th, 2021 to May 9th, 2022 is the part of my life I will never forget. And when I say I met incredible people, I couldn't lie to you. I realized that in those situations, everyone that's out there they're really good people. Deep down, we're all really good people. We just suffer from addiction. And because of that, we have nothing to lose, and we hurt the people around us, and we're wandering around and we're lost. But I want to tell you about the turning point and what happened. So on May 9th, I was sleeping in this lady's shed connected to her trailer. I don't really remember when I got there, but I was sleeping off probably a 6 or 7 day bender. And I woke up and there was these 2 detectives standing at my feet, waking me up. And I always say this in my story this way because I feel like a lot of people can relate. I wasn't worried anymore. And I remember when they put those cuffs on my hands behind my back and I could feel the metal cuffs on my wrist bone, I just immediately felt so much relief. I knew I was going to go through withdrawals. I knew I was going to detox, but I knew that there was no way for me to get the drugs that I was looking for. So because of that, I had this peace. And because of that, I had this overwhelming sense of relief. Has anyone here been to jail before? Oh, just a couple of you? Okay. John, did you say you'd been? Okay. You know, jail is not a pleasant place. But I'll never forget the first time that I woke up normal. Like, if anybody's ever detoxed from anything, but much less heroin or fentanyl, you know what I mean. I want to say it was day 21, 22, 23, and it was the first time I woke up and I didn't have restless leg syndrome. And I wasn't shivering cold and sweating and feeling like I was going to throw up and waking up every 30 minutes. This time I woke up and I felt like that 12-year-old boy again. And I cried. Not for the reason you thought, mainly because my bunkie was salsa dancing at 5 o'clock in the morning and went, trains are here, trains are here. Is that a good one? Is it? Yeah. But the reason that I got so emotional is because I felt free. I didn't have this handcuff on me anymore. And there was no way that I was going to go back to using again. I knew that much, but I did not know what that looked like. You know, I was facing some pretty serious charges, and all I was doing was lying about it. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I didn't have any guide. I was in a cell with how many other guys? 7? And out of the 7 guys, there was this one silver fox that sat in there that with all the dance moves that talked about recovery. He talked about having a sponsor. He talked about this place called Sarasota. He talked about this girl named Sally. He talked to me about things that no one had ever mentioned before. I didn't know what AA, NA, CA, DA, whatever. I didn't know what any of it was. But I began to build this friendship with this guy, and I would just ask him, like, oh, you know, why do you go to AA meetings? You're a drug addict. And he would answer these questions for me. Well, what are the steps? I don't know. Is this one, this, you know, like we would have those conversations. It wasn't about who got the highest, who got the drunkest, who had the more girlfriends, the most girlfriends. It was recovery. And it was what he learned here. It was what he learned in Sarasota. It was brought to the jail that I was in. So that's how I found peace. And that's what I mean when I say, if you've ever been to jail, that was where I found serenity. Now, to be clear, when I was in jail, I never got a phone call from my mom, or I never called and she answered. I didn't get messages on the tablet. But before Andrew left, he told me, he was like, here, take my number down. If you're really serious about getting sober, call me when you get out, and I'll help you get to Sarasota. And he got moved, and some time went by, and one day I just had this hunch. I was like, let me go check the tablet, see if anybody's messaged me. And it was Andrew. And he was like, hey, if you're really serious about recovery, here's $100 on your books, here's some time on your phone, and let's get you down to Sarasota when you get out. Now, I want to pause there for a second because I want to make sure you all know of how this robbery went down. Again, I was lying about it, right? Did I rob the gas station allegedly? Absolutely. But at that point in time, I had no clue how I was going to get out of this, right? Like, that's how we handle it. I get phone calls all the time from guys in jail that are trying to figure out how to get out of it, not realizing that the reason they are in there is the consequences of their actions. I don't even know why I've got papers up here, but Well, that's missing. So, to be clear, I was reading some scriptures one day, and I was in Polk County Jail. They only let you have a Bible, really. And I'm reading, and I come across this scripture that says, "Do not disdain the chastisement of the Lord." And what that scripture actually means, and what it means to me in my interpretation of it, is don't be mad at someone else for the stuff you did. Don't be mad about the punishment you're getting because you decided to go live in the woods and abandon your family. Don't be mad at someone else and blame the girl behind the register because you decided to go rob the place. And for some reason that clicked to me. I'd been preaching for 15 years, and not once did it occur to me that I needed to shut up and listen. I was too prideful. I was too egotistical to sit down and listen to what someone else had to say. And in that moment, I reached out to my public defender. I told her that I robbed the gas station. She came in the next day and said, "Quit telling everybody that. You're not allowed to do that. They're gonna, someone's gonna rat you out." But they offered me 36 months probation, and a week later, I was getting out of jail to come to Sarasota. And that is one of the realest things in my life where I actually felt God's presence, where he put the scriptures in front of me and helped me understand where my problem was. Andrew Ubered me. He paid $108 and Ubered me from Lakeland, Florida to Hidden Forest, where Joel was the house manager, where Lonnie's now the house manager. Interesting point. And today, me, Joel, and Andrew own that same program. Right? We do? Is that we do own it, right? Finally, I can take these stupid pictures off. So this part of my story, I just want to be clear, like this is where I started rebuilding myself. Like life started here. I don't remember, what's on there? Yeah, some cool pictures. Look at Andrew and me, how tiny he is. So I came into recovery, I had no idea what to do. I didn't know what to expect. And first day I was here, Joel's like, "Okay, we got to get you out of those stinky shoes. Your feet smell horrible." He took me to Walmart. He bought me some cheap shoes, bought me some socks, got me all the things I needed. I didn't have a job, so I go to a meeting, and Andrew introduced me to this goofy dude named Todd that owns a bunch of electric mowers. And he was like, "Hey, I'll come pick you up." Picked me up every day, paid me like $100 a day to cut grass for 3 hours. Like, took care of me. Todd introduced me to the next person. I got a sponsor. I went to meetings. I did the thing. I did the thing that they told me to do, and it worked. They said, get a sponsor, get a home group, go to meetings. The job, all the other stuff will come. You just have to do those things. And as soon as I started doing those things, everything fell in place. I can't stress enough to the people here tonight, especially the newcomers. When they say get a sponsor, get a home group, they're not just saying that because it's what they're supposed to say. They're saying that because that's what works. That's what works. I know plenty of people that live in halfway houses that got 18 months sober and struggle to pay their rent on Fridays. But they ain't got a sponsor, they ain't got a home group. Like, that's reality. I know so many people like that, and they think there's no problem, right? I know so many people that move out of their recovery home to live on their uncle's couch. But they ain't got a home group, they ain't got a sponsor. You know, the reality is I started rebuilding myself. And it required me to sit down, shut up, and listen. And just do what they said to do. I don't remember where these other two pages are, but basically, this is Joel's fault. He sabotaged me. Here we go. Perfect. One interesting thing that I can't overlook is when I came into recovery, I really didn't understand what my life would look like. I thought I would get 6-7 months sober, save up a bunch of money, buy a plane ticket, and travel the world. That's what I genuinely, honestly, I wanted to see the pyramids. I wanted to go to Great Wall of China. I wanted to go to Israel. That's what I had planned. But then I met Shelby. So God works in very mysterious ways sometimes. I think almost he realized that I didn't need to go to Egypt too soon. Shortly after I met Shelby, she got pregnant with Charlotte, and you don't have to bring her up. Okay. I never thought I'd be a dad. I genuinely didn't. I was in my mid-30s. I had no thought that it would ever be me being a dad. But at this stage of my life, it is the best thing that's ever happened to me. My dad used to say when I was real young, the same drunk alcoholic man that would beat my mother mercilessly in the middle of the night. I can remember a few things he told me, but the one thing that stuck with me, he says, a kid will make a man out of you. I don't think about using. I don't think about drinking. I don't think about going back out. I just think about how stupid it would be and how dumb it would be to give all of these great blessings away for something as stupid as drugs and alcohol. So today, I really encourage you, if you're struggling with those things, don't let the gifts of recovery be the things that takes you out of recovery. Thank you. All right, I'm going to try to hurry this up real quick. I want to talk a minute about my good friend Joel and Andrew and about Project Exodus. And I just want to start by telling you how we came up with the name. I think we probably pondered about 50 different logos, name ideas. You know how many times the word Exodus was just an X, and I was trying to think of what really described addiction. I talk about being handcuffed to this drug. I was a slave to these substances. There was nothing that I wouldn't do to get high. I would have done anything. But in the Bible, the book Exodus talks about how God led Moses and Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, out of enslavement, to the promised land, right? To paradise, the promised land that they had wanted. And that was me. As weirdly as it sounds, God led me out of that addiction. And he used Andrew, he used Joel, he used Todd, he used Lonnie, he used all the people in my life to help me get out of that. So Exodus was the word. Exodus was what we was going to go with. I don't want to pick on Dory, but I'm going to for a minute. If you've seen the slides about the Kissimmee Project, Dory's the lady that came back, and we're so proud of her. I'm so happy that she's here. I know this is going to be a difficult trip. It's going to be a difficult journey, but you have the biggest family in the world that will hold your hand through this. Monday, Dory asked me, she said, why are you doing this? And why are you coming to Kissimmee and getting people and bringing them down here? And I didn't have a good answer. I honestly didn't know. I was like, I don't know. I'm just doing it. But today I know why I did it. I have an answer for you now. I do this because it was done for me. And it's that simple. Because Andrew pulled me out of those woods, whether he knows it or not. Joel bought me socks and shoes when nobody else would help me. Lonnie drove me to work every single day and charged me nothing. Sorry. Monday Night Men's Group taught me how to be a man and how to be honest. But most importantly, God showed up for me when I didn't expect him to show up at all. When I turned my back on him at every turning point in my life, he showed up when I was sitting in that jail. And he showed me what I should be doing. In Isaiah 6:8, it says this. It says, then I heard a voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? And I said, here am I, send me. I don't feel that there's any better person to walk into the woods of Kissimmee or any form of homelessness than us. What's a preacher going to go out there that's never used drugs a day in their life and convince someone like us that we can get help? No. He's going to send Marcus. Marcus can reach them. Becca can reach them. We got a girl up there named Kelly right now that's suffering with endocarditis. And I know 2 girls here right now tonight that have went through that and understand the struggles that she's about to do. Who better to send? So the answer to your question is I do this because someone did it for me. And I hope that's sufficient, But real talk, we have for Project Exodus, and I'll try to make this quick. I'm not just trying to make a public statement
You know, a lot of people think, we faced a lot of criticism from people. I don't even realize it half the time because I don't really care about but we've had our ups and downs. People have criticized me. They have accused me of doing this for money, misunderstood the mission. They don't realize that me, Joel, and Andrew all work 6 days a week. We have families that we've put everything we have into this, and I don't think either one of us have ever collected a dollar, except for Joel, maybe. No, I'm just kidding. We do this because we love and we really want to help people. But one thing that Sonia told me one day was Psalms 23:5. It says, God prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. And I realized that the devil is going to do whatever he can to get in our way. He's going to do whatever he can to keep us from helping people. So to the haters, I pray for you. I love you. But know this, the Project Exodus train is rolling. So get on board or get run over. Thank you. All right. Final thing, I want to wrap up and give you a little bit of hope instead of a bunch of hating on people. If God can, I guess I need to go. Oh, what it's like now. Sorry. All right, so here's a few pictures. Today's life's amazing, right? Today I couldn't have. I always say I don't deserve this because it's so surreal to me that I get to wake up with a daughter, a beautiful girlfriend, a fiance, the two of the best friends that God could have ever given me with, mentors, and I get to help people. That's what I get to do for fun. This is the best thing I've ever done. And not only that, I get to help people that are like me. So if God can take a broken addict like me and turn him into a builder of homes for the broken, then there's hope for anyone. Surrender to something greater. Find your people and trust God with the rest. What keeps me sober and clean today is 3 things: goals, God, and gratitude. I keep my life filled with achievable goals, like going to a meeting, getting my own place, pressing 10 shirts, eating healthy, or taking care of myself. The small wins in these goals build momentum and remind me that I'm moving forward. I don't know which one it is. Good job, Andrew. Thank you. You broke this. No, here it is. Perfect. I mentioned it was goals, God, and gratitude. I pray to my higher power every day, and I have him the center of my life rather than me be the center of my life. And the one thing that I think is more important than anything for hearing people today is gratitude. I have gratitude every single day that I'm alive. I've lost so many friends to this disease, and I don't take that for granted. Has anyone else in this room lost someone to the... Raise your hand. That's it? We're lucky to be here, and there's a war to fight. And we are the perfect militia to fight this war. There are people in this room tonight that have seen my lifeless body overdosed, growing cold. There's people here that have seen that, but they didn't give up on me. They gave everything they had to bring me back. And because of that, I'm here today. And now I get to return the favor. And that's the truth. I'm proud of each and every one of you here tonight. I know the struggle that you're going through. You are family to me. You are brothers and sisters to me. You are aunts and uncles to my daughter. You matter. You are all enough, and you are loved. My name's Paul. I'm an addict.